All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here before it's officially time to start the show. We got the spinning wheels going. Boom, boom. Welcome in, welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, the 29th, and gosh, it's football is pretty much here. We're going to have a big day today and talk a lot about the roster and a lot of dreams coming true, but also dreams, temporary on hold for a lot of guys. But my dreams coming true. I'm hanging out with Scott this morning. How you doing, Scott? How are you? What's new?
One of my favorite lines from, and I think it was Inception, and one of my favorite actors, Tom Hardy, said, "You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling."
Good show, good movie. Yeah, that's I enjoy hanging out, Scott. It's a lot of fun. I mean, we wouldn't
I
do
know,
it five
but it's not
five
what
days
I
a
would
week.
call a dream. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, yeah, it's as you always say, it's kind of like that workout buddy. It's like you wake up and it's like, oh man, I'm exhausted. Then you get on, it's like, okay, we got people that we need to hang out with, and that includes everybody in the chat here. And it's a big day today in Broncos country and the NFL at large. So excited to talk to today, and not too much news yesterday. The Broncos are really holding on to their cards, so there should be a flurry of moves today.
Is it even going to be I mean, it has to be a flurry because the agents leak.
Yeah,
It'll be from the Broncos. It's just going to be a dump.
yeah,
It's not even going to be a
a
flurry. It's
blizzard.
just going to be kadoosh. It's going to
Yeah.
be everybody all at once. But the agents will leak that out
Mhm.
to, they won't be able to keep the player. So that's how the news comes out. But it's gonna, like, yeah, you're right. It'll be a flurry of news,
Yeah, but
just
I
not
think
from the
maybe
Broncos.
a blizzard. Pay attention to Mike Kliss because he's been announcing a lot of the moves first. So definitely one of the probably most prominent Bronco insider there. And we got a thumbs up coming in here from our guy Aaron Medina. So thank you if you guys are joining us today. Be like Aaron Medina and drop a thumbs up on the way in. David Youngkin in here saying I do not see anyone get hurt or lose time, but I really want to see the new guys in the field and making plays. If the you if the new guys are on the field and making plays and it's because nobody is getting hurt, it's because the young guys are taking control of those roster spots, opportunities. Like, let's say Jaleel McLaughlin, young guy, he's running the ball so effectively and explosively that you lose 3 to 5 touches for Samaje Perine that go to Jaleel McLaughlin. Too bad for Perine, but I mean that's a good thing. I think long term
Yeah.
probably means more that McLaughlin stepped up than Perine is struggling.
It's competition.
Mhm.
It's what the coaches preach. They want competition at every spot, and frankly, they want a young, cheap guy coming after your
Mhm.
job as an old guy.
Yep.
That's how you have to do it, in just financially.
Mhm. Yep.
Old and expensive is a tough way to go.
Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely. So hopefully a lot of these rookie contract players can step up for the Broncos this year, especially now that they are, have some question at depth at on the perimeter. Scott and I were very much trenches people, but wide receiver and cornerback look a little precarious depth wise for the Broncos right now with all the injuries, and we'll get into some of that here today. Good to see you, David. Dominique's in the house. Hey, Broncos family, just checking in. I'll watch this podcast when I get off of work. Well, you'll hear us say hello to you then. So I hope you're doing well. Kevin Gray's in here. Morning, Nick and Scott. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country. Good to see you. Alberto Duran. Alberto, it's been a second, I think. Hope you're doing well. Says morning, fellas. Kevin Gray says, I wonder if Albert Okwuegbunam has made the roster. I think that Albert Okwuegbunam is more likely to make the roster than not, but I'll tell you what, if he's not on this roster, it's the Broncos are getting some sort of compensation back. Now, I don't think it's going to be big. I saw that we had a Chiefs-Panthers trade announced either this morning or last night with Amir Smith-Marset going, and it was like an exchange of 2025 draft picks. I think you're going to get a little bit better than that for Albert Okwuegbunam because Amir Smith-Marset was kind of a bouncing off practice squad kind of guy. But if Albert Okwuegbunam is not on the Broncos, it's because they were able to get trade compensation for him that they thought was worthy versus 1 year left of control on a depth tight end.
Yeah, because there's no guarantee you'd be able to get him back. So
Mhm.
it's like he's not basically, he's a free agent at the end of this year. So what can you get if we don't think we can get him to come even back? Like what we saw. I mean, if you had that Albert O that you saw on Saturday for the last 3 years, you'd already have extended him and he'd be making lots and lots of money. But you haven't, and that's again, I said yesterday, Nick, the negative part of you have to try and pick apart any deal.
Yeah.
The positive, if I showed you that highlight from this weekend, you'd be like, this is one of the top tight ends in the NFL. The negative is those are probably his best highlights in 3+ years. Okay. So why? What has changed, and can it be sustainable? If you believe the answer is yes, he's worth a decent pick and some money.
Yeah, I think I'd probably set the price at a low fourth, and I think that's an unreasonable. I think that's an ask that nobody would meet. So really, it's like asking for the moon, and then if nobody offers it, then it's like, oh well, yeah, you can't say I didn't
It's the
uh,
Colts trying to trade
listen.
Jonathan Taylor when he asked for one. Sure, we're just going to put a price up that no one can meet. No one will
Yeah,
meet. And if they do, well, okay, great.
yeah. So we'll see what's going on. I'm pretty darn confident from what I've heard. The Broncos at least have interest from Alberto, but
And here comes your
from
flurry, Nick, going
from
down towards the bottom.
we have moved.
The Broncos just waived PJ Mustipher, according to Mike Kliss. And then the Michael coming in, this one wasn't a big surprise. Montreal Washington has been waived as well. And
Wow.
I did see someone say it's 4 years to you corrected me, thankfully,
Hmm.
yesterday as I was spewing incorrections. I can spew nonsense. That's I don't mind doing that. But when I'm factually wrong, that bothers me. Um, 4 years of control, you hit the waiver wire,
Yep.
or 4 years or less, and then a veteran above that, you're immediately a free agent. That's the difference between being waived and being cut. It is 4 years.
So that's why last year the Broncos, with how they worked the roster, putting some of those guys in the short-term IR, they straight up released Mike Purcell because they had kind of a backroom deal. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
we're going to put you. It's a roster move, really more than anything. Where
Procedural.
procedural, yes, exactly. So brought him in. So yeah, we're getting some news coming in. Broncos moving on from Montreal Washington and PJ Mustipher. Feel bad for Montreal Washington, but man, what a bad pick. I mean, it's very rare that a fifth round pick is a bust because a lot of those guys flame out anyway. But to pick somebody whose pathway is purely a specialist and have him struggle as spectacularly as he did, I think you can categorize that one as a soft bust. That won't kill your franchise, but getting absolutely nothing for that pick
But if,
hurts.
if you're going to draft a specialist, you expect the specialist to be a key player
Mhm.
as a specialist. If I
Yep.
used a fifth round pick on a kicker,
Hmm.
I'd expect him to be my kicker for the next 8 to 10 years.
Yep.
So think of it like that. Or a punter. You're like, why are you using a fifth round pick on a punter? Well, this is a return guy. They don't even touch. You got it right.
Yeah. Jeremy Sean in here. Morning, boys. Another day, another long term injury. Hopefully not long term. Talking about Kwan Williams there at the news. Donald Willison's in the house. Good to see you. Jasmine, one of our big benefactors, saying morning all. Good morning to you, Jasmine. Hope you're doing well.
Hope you
Fallen
survived the
Sloth.
storms yesterday. Jasmine's lives relatively close to me, and it got loud
Yep.
around here. One of those nice southern storms that I heard thunder like one time in California, and everybody's like, "What the hell was that?" This one was one. If we had it while we were on, you'd be like, "Why is Scott shaking around?" And the why are the shutters shaking? So hope everything was good. Cooled things off nicely though. It did.
Yeah.
It's in the 70s today.
We had a lot of thunder last night come through at about 3:30, which is really rare for Seattle. I'm just hoping that there was enough rain with it that it did not cause more wildfires. But we're getting close. Snow will be falling soon. Sloth, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Got our guy Troy coming in, $20. Thank you so much, Troy. You're typically a $9.99 kind of guy. So we must be doing something right, or today must be a big day. Thank you so much for the 20. He says, hey guys, have a great show. Can listen later. This super is for today and last night. Still having phone trouble. Should be quite a whirlwind starting soon. Well, Troy, thank you so much, and hopefully you can get your phone figured out soon. It would be a real shame for Scott and I if it had an extra zero on there too because of the phone, right? Now, any bit helps. Thank you so much, Troy. We appreciate you, and hello to you in the future, right? Kuhn coming in here saying, how much do you think the Patrick Surtain contract will be? Luckily, the Broncos don't have to worry about that for a bit. Also, I think luckily you have a chance to pay him before Sauce Gardner also gets paid. So you have like a year ahead of that. So probably Sauce is going to try to top PS2, assuming they keep playing the way they do. But for the Broncos, you still have 3 years of control, potentially 4. I'm guessing they're going to use 3 of those before paying him. It's going to be a market resetting contract. Maybe they'll use just 2 of them and then use that 5th year option on it. But you have 2 years of contract for the rookie deal still, the 5th year option, and the franchise tag, all of which are going to be cheaper than what he's going to get paid. So you have those options.
$20 million is right about the number for the top corners right now. It's interesting because the top 5 on average salary are all within about $1 million of each other. I just checked out Spot Rack, and it's all right around 20. I think Because David comes in, he says he will get paid, but it will be at the end of the season. And I think he followed that up with, see, Scott, I do listen. I think it would be at the end of next season. So where we've seen the big extensions come, Nick, around the league is, yes, I pick up the 5th-year option. So I know you're going to be on a 5th-year option, but let's work out an extension so that once your 5th-year option hit year 6, your extension kicks in. So I would imagine it will probably be in the neighborhood of, by that time, in 2 years, when an extension kicks in. Actually, that would have been in 3 years, wouldn't it? Because
3 years. I was going to say the math was 3. Yeah.
you'd have this year. This is year 3. Play on year 4, pick up the 5th year, and then year 6 is when the extension would kick in and be in the neighborhood of $25 million.
25 to 30, I think. They're talking about the salary cap exploding over the next 2 to 5 years. So you could see a lot of these contracts jump up as well. Personally, I would like to see some of these. I don't know, Scott. I feel bad sometimes for the back end of the roster guys, maybe to have raised the minimum a bit, but lower the maximum. I don't know if that can, like, if you can do that with positions, but
Well, if you just do a higher minimum salary, that'll happen.
yes, but I think doing that, well, I guess just doing the higher minimum would then by default
Yeah,
lower the
you raise the
maximum.
minimum salary. That will happen.
Yeah.
And excuse me. If it's 750 now and you say, well, we raise it to 950, well, that's a good chunk of change
hmm
from 950. Now we're talking about 25 million or so, but within the constraints of the free market system, as little as there is, you pay a premium for talent. It's
hmm
like, is the guy making 10? Is this guy twice as good as the guy making 10? No, but it's an exponential curve. We talk about that all the time. To get from, think of it in Madden ratings, to get from a 90 to a 99 is exponentially more expensive. And that's
Yeah.
the way the market works. How
Yeah.
easily could you replace Pat Surtain? Well, you probably couldn't.
Couldn't.
So what you would have to do is, try and, now I'm talking Moneyball here, is replace him
Yeah.
on aggregate. Okay, I didn't spend 25 on him. I spent 10 on his replacement. And oh, by the way, I was able to throw 15 at an edge rusher. I just got better by not spending 25 here. But again, it's you pay a premium, and the top 10 guys will make 90%. It's the 90-10 rule. It's just the way it is. It's like that in baseball. It's like that in basketball. It's like that in as much as you
Business.
can think of as the free
Yeah.
market within this socialist system that is the NFL.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel bad sometimes for some of the smaller guys doing that and working Home Depot or whatever. Not that God bless you working at Home Depot, but NFL difference there. But Michael Ronquillo, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Good to see you. Jason Walton says, good morning, guys. One step closer to rising from the ashes. Sting guys and good morning, all. Any roster news? Well, we got PJ Mustipher being waived, Montreal Washington being waived, and they waived a linebacker yesterday that I'm going to be honest, his name did not stand out to me, Scott. It was like Austin or something. I mean, I gave you a hard time about not knowing Seth Benson. I read that name.
I know Seth Benson. I'm going to have it tattooed on my forearm.
I mean, him next to Jack Campbell is a fun time at Iowa, but I digress. They waived a linebacker as well. There's also the Jalen Virgil going on IR for the year. He had a successful surgery. He should be ready for camp next year, they're saying, up in July, which is great news. And there's a depth tackle. Again, talking about very back in the roster guys. I can't even think of the name off the top of my head.
Jacobs.
James?
Jacobs?
Yes, Jacobs. He's had surgery and he'll be on IR this year as well, is my understanding. But yeah, that's pretty much all the rundown on the news, other than the Quan Williams one, which we'll get into. Tim Durr coming in and saying Malik Reed got released from the Dolphins.
There were a couple of those yesterday. Some former Broncos. Corliss Waitman got released. Tyree Cleveland got released. Malik Reed got released. And it was interesting. You go from it's stats, lies, and damn lies, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Malik Reed was 8 sacks for a couple of years in a row.
Yeah.
Can't get a job. So there's definitely more to it than just the numbers. Elliot D coming in says, good morning from Page, Arizona. Thanks for the content, gentlemen. Do you think we'll trade for a wide receiver? No, I don't. I think you'll wait for the waiver wire here and see what happens.
I Yes, I agree with you, Scott. I think it's waiver wire first, free agency just in general second, and then maybe you have what 10 days until the first game. You can kind of look over and work on some deals if you want over that time. I'm sure you're going to be calling on some guys, but the Broncos are dealing from a spot of weakness when it comes to draft picks right now. I mean, those are really valuable assets that they just do not have a lot of right now, given the moves that they've made, the Sean Payton trade, the Riley Moss move last draft. So
Marvin Mims.
Marvin Mims. I don't think they gave up any
Futures,
2020,
but you're still
2024
cutting
picks. Yeah.
into your controllable
Yeah.
contracts, your rookie
Yes.
contracts with your
Yep.
draft picks. So
Yep.
there has been a lot of you were saying there's not a lot in the future. I'm saying there hasn't been a lot in the past. So they haven't been
Yeah.
working with a lot. So therefore, what's coming in the future is even more valuable because they don't, as you
Yeah.
like to say, have a lot of those rookie contracts on the team right now
Yeah.
because of moves they've already made.
Yeah. And another one was the Adam Troutman trade. Give up a 5th-round draft pick to bring in Adam Troutman. So not a lot of guys in the last 2 draft class on those rookie contracts. So
If
definitely makes
Adam
it harder.
Troutman is worth a fifth, Albert Okwuegbunam is worth a
4th, 5th. I mean, he's younger too. Are they in the same? Were they in the same draft class? I can't even remember. But Troutman, I think from UMass. But I think he'd probably be worth a 5th, 4th. I'd ask for a 4th. I might settle for a 5th if I was really strung to get him to have that roster spot and get a little capital back.
Troutman's 26. I would
Okwuegbunam's
say
probably 24.
Okwuegbunam's probably in that number as well, pretty close. He's 25.
25. Okay. Same draft
Birthday,
class
and
then.
he just turned 25. Alberto just turned 25.
Okay. So still very young player. I'm asking for a 4th or 5th. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much, Elliot D. $5 coming in our pockets. Thanks for the support. Says morning, guys, from Michaela Israel. Good to see you. Gary Palmer
Yep.
coming in
Morning, Michaela.
499 says good morning, Nick and Scott. Big day for a lot. Hope Albert stays. If he doesn't stay, then you're getting draft capital back, and he's getting an opportunity where he's going to a team that people want him. So it'd be a win-win. Unless he goes on and is amazing, and the Broncos only got a 5th-round pick for him, then that would be a bummer. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and we'll have to judge Peyton and Peyton on that in hindsight.
Yeah, and it's Jeremy says, for what it would cost you, and appreciate you, Gary. Hope you're doing well. He says, I'd rather bet on Alberto with the improvement shown. I think the risk is there for what it costs you. A spot on the 53, and he's not making much money. I think it would be worth having him taking one more chance for a year. And okay, you lost a 4th-round pick. What do you have to lose? A 4th-rounder? What do you have to gain? The risk reward on this is big. And unless you just have seen enough, like, listen, this guy isn't putting in the work. Again, there's a phrase I use all the time. The phrase has always been, you can't measure someone's heart. And as I started watching and scouting players, I said, yeah, but you can damn sure tell if they've got one or not. And the question for me on Albert O would be, where has the effort been? Why is this just now coming out? Is it just, a natural progression? He was a raw prospect. Fine. That's great. He's on that trajectory. But as I'm making these decisions about players' livelihood and my livelihood on this team, I have that question about Albert O.
Yeah.
Is why are we just now seeing this into year 4? It's a contract year. That's one of it. That's kind of scary. And David did mention that too. David Youngkin. It is a contract year. That's the answer. Might be, but he is young. I mean, he's 25 years old. It might just be a natural progression of time for a tough position where you've got to go in there and battle the big boys and go out there and run routes with the receivers. It's a hard position.
Tight end historically is one of the slowest developing positions in the league. Typically, you see guys kind of start to show who they will be for their career year 3, and we're entering year 4 for Alberto, so that's kind of right around the timeline for him. Also, the other thing is he suffered a season-ending injury. His rookie season, I'm sure that set him back a little bit. I can't remember if it was an Achilles or an ACL, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, William coming in said, doesn't take a bit for a tight end to get it in the NFL. It does, typically. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's the Broncos are going to have to weigh what the return, how valuable that is and whatnot. I mean, honestly, I know who's more valuable here, but if you guys want Albert O on this roster so much, given what they're talking about for the value of blocking, what they're looking for in depth at special teams, it might cost you a Greg Dulcich on the roster. I mean, really, if you only have a spot for so many guys and the value of is blocking in special teams, if you want Albert O so bad, maybe then you're asking for the Broncos to trade and see what you can get for Dulcich. which I don't know if is a smart move. More years of control, better receiver. I would not be advocating for that, but just how the roster is setting up, and from what I've heard, I don't know if they're wanting to have spots for two guys who are not plus blockers who also don't contribute on special teams.
Yeah, and I've moved Dulcich into the receiver category,
Yeah,
but that's kind of where you have Albert O also.
yeah,
And there's been a lot of talk. What about moving him to wide receiver? He'll never be listed as a wide receiver. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. He's never going to be a wide receiver. That doesn't mean you can't take him and move him around
mhm,
into, like I said, you go trips left and Albert O split wide right all by himself with a matchup with a 6', 190-pound corner. I'm just going to throw it up and watch him play basketball.
yeah,
Um, that's a good matchup to have. The question is can I afford to bring him in line when I need him to pick up a Bosa that is running into problems? We're playing the Browns and Myles Garrett. I need some help in the blocking department. I want to enforce our will. And I do think the answer to that, Nick, is yes. I can
mhm,
afford to carry those two right now while my wide receivers are getting healthy.
yeah.
Maybe I have a decision to make in a couple of weeks, but I think I can afford to do that right now because I've got specialists on the other end of the spectrum in Manhurts and Troutman.
It's going to be hard because for some of those guys you're waiting on to come back, if you're talking about the long term or short term IR, you can only activate, I think it's 8 throughout the
Mhm.
entire season. And you already have potentially Quan Williams in that category, Baron Browning in that category. You don't want to, use them all immediately. So it'll be interesting. And more news trickling in here. Tim Durr comes in and says Taylor Grimes is waived. Yeah, other news coming in. Thanks to Mike Kliss, Josh Hammond, the XFL receiver they just brought in, who got a touchdown catch in this last preseason game. He's been waived. I saw PJ Mustipher was waived as well. There was also the international defensive tackle was waived. The one from Hagi Nebusi.
Yeah, he's the one that should have been an offensive. He was an offensive tackle last year.
Yeah, the giant guy from the international signing pool. So yeah, he's been waived as well. So the moves are starting to trickle in. So far, no shocks. We probably won't see any shocking moves for a while. Probably not today, but I mean, probably not during the show, but some point later today. So some more people coming in. Lawrence Rivera, good to see you. Good morning, Broncos country. Tim Durr, good morning. Thank you for the news, Tim. Raymond Shelby's coming in saying good morning. Hope you're doing well. Pearl Heater says good morning. Cristiano Roden says, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Let's ride. Jeff B saying they should keep Alberto. And yeah, Broncos also waived Tommy Hudson, tight end, who was definitely the back of the roster tight end. The decision really comes down to Alberto Cuevanon versus Nate Adkins out there. Nate offers a little bit more versatility, but we'll see. Brooke L and Official Music says, good morning to my favorite morning podcast, guys. All who are watching. Thank you so much, Brooke. I would love to see you just get even more specific. Like my favorite two podcast guys who are in the morning on the opposite ends of the coast and just like really narrow it down there for us. We don't want to be too broad. Donald Willison coming in. Good to see you. Trying to catch up on everybody. We like to say hello to everybody we possibly can in the morning. Robbie Red's in the house. Good to see you. Greg Smith, our guy. Aloha, he likes to say. Good to see you, Greg Smith. And doing well catching up. But Scott, we had big news, relatively big news yesterday. Unfortunately, the Broncos suffer another injury at a boundary skill position, not wide receiver, but news, I guess, not suffering injury, but news on an injury. Quan Williams has a successful ankle surgery that is going to put his timeline on the Broncos this season in question. So he has ankle surgery. He got a second opinion on it about 10 days ago, a week ago. Goes out to North Carolina, gets a surgery really close to camp, and now the Broncos are in a weird spot where he could be back in 8 weeks, they say, but because that's such a long time frame, and the fact that you'd have to keep him on your active 53 before putting him on the short-term IR, he might end up on season-ending IR for the Broncos for that roster spot.
I think if you're close within 10 weeks, you've still got another 8 weeks plus playoffs you're hoping for. So I think he would be a 53 and then put on the IR after the 53. And then you make some changes. I think this is the good news out of this, if there is any, is a guy who's competing in that spot is Asang Bassi has played really well in the preseason. So you're hoping that's an opportunity for him. I'm about as worried about Riley Moss and his ability to contribute this year with this lingering injury. We've seen this go and like, okay, it shouldn't be that bad. We expect him back, but we're talking an abdominal and he hasn't really played since he's been with the Denver Broncos. He's been out for one reason or another. That I think he's saying Bassey is becoming more and more valuable to this team, and I would absolutely keep. Again, if I'm hearing 8 to 10 weeks right now, I'm putting K1 on the 53 without a doubt.
Mhm. Yeah.
For a day.
He's for a day and then on the short-term IR.
For an hour.
I think I agree with you, and I think the thing that Broncos country a lot of Broncos country probably underappreciates with K'Waun Williams is his run defense as a nickel player on the side. I mean, saying Bassey's made some incredible plays on the ball. I mean, his instincts and ability just to be in the right place have been awesome in the short preseason stint that we've had here. But you're going to really miss K'Waun Williams' physicality and tackling in the outside run game and the quick pass game. I mean, I'll never forget last year. He was ejected from a game for tackling through a blocker. I don't know how else to explain. I don't know how it was illegal. I just don't understand the rules, I guess, of football. But it was one play. It's like I don't know. He just destroyed the blocker and then pushed the blocker into the receiver, and that's an ejection. I don't know, but you're going to really miss his physicality.
Well, remember what I just said about, you can't measure someone's heart, but you can tell if you've got one or not. Watch K'Waun Williams play the run. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what is. I mean, this guy is a giant beating heart out there, and those are the guys you want on the field. And I didn't say I said this, and I kind of meant it. I mean, like it's kind of tongue in cheek, but not really. I'm like, he was your best edge defender last year. When it came to turning a running back going outside, turning him back inside, K'Waun Williams did that better than most of your edge rushers.
Yeah.
Because he was super physical. He'd throw his head anywhere, and that might be one of the reasons he played hurt maybe a little longer than he could have. How come he didn't get this done sooner? Because he was hoping he could play through it until finally it got to him.
Mhm.
And you take that risk. Can I make it? Can I make it? Can I make it? No. All right. Well, shoot, we're gonna have to have something done. Do it now, and hopefully you can be back for the second half of the season plus playoffs.
Yeah. So hoping that he is healthy. I mean, he plays with reckless abandon, and that's probably one reason that he's missed time every single season of his career. I think entering year 8 or year 9, I believe I read that he has had an injury that has caused him to miss time every single season. So hopefully, I think you're right, Scott, that they'll put him on the 53, and then you'll see him back. And then we got some news here, so we can't even debate that. Probably the biggest news so far from Broncos country in the moves. Third string quarterback Ben DiNucci waived. So we had a lot of discussion, Scott, about whether the Broncos would keep 3 quarterbacks, whether they'd use the benefit of having that extra active roster spot if you have 3 on your roster. Well, if the Broncos do that, it won't be with DiNucci. It looks like he's been waived and is now on the wire.
Yeah, my reaction from the preseason was I don't see a reason to use a 53 on Ben DiNucci right now.
Practice squad.
It's worth the risk to put him on the wire, see if he clears, and then try and re-sign him to the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way I felt, and that's the way it looks like the people that matter have felt as well. He's okay, nice third string, but you've got other issues right now with like we've been talking about since the beginning of the show, juggling the players that are injured and making sure that they're protected for the long term, trying to keep somebody. Can I sneak this guy through wire? I think I can. Risk reward again. Okay, I risk Ben DiNucci. Okay, well, what do I lose if someone takes him? My reward is if I sneak him through, I can get him on the practice squad. That's good. I'd like to have a good quarterback on my practice squad. My risk is I lose him outright, or I would lose another player that I had to cut today to keep him on the 53, and it wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah, and Scott, I know you're going to cry about this one, but also Seth Benson has been waived. So I know that.
Rooting for that guy. No, I mean, no. I would be rooting for this guy, I'm sure, but
Yeah,
I literally, I didn't.
recognize him. He
Been
didn't
through
make
this
any real
already.
splash plays.
I
Yeah,
didn't
no, it's
didn't expect him to make the team.
me neither, but I do think he will end up on the practice squad. Good player, good guy as well. Rob Bucksbaum says, "Good morning, gents. Interested to see what the cuts are. We're starting to see him come in. What are your guys' projections for Georgia tight end Brock Bowers to be drafted top 5, top 10, end of the first? He is a very unique player and was probably the best offensive player on that Georgia team last year.
And the year
The thing
before,
with him is, what was that?
and the year before,
And the year before. They had a pretty good
I
offensive
know I'm
line, but
teasing. I'm
I
teasing.
digress. Yeah, yeah. Brock Bowers, the thing about Bowers is that he's kinda got not a prototype body for the tight end position. He's like weighs about 230, 235, and he's a little bit shorter. He's almost kind of got a little bit tight end H-back type of body. Now
Who's
he's
that
such
sound
a
like to you?
maybe like Dulcich, but I think Bowers is a little bit better of a blocker out
Yeah,
there. He can,
but he's just better all around. But it
well,
is
yes,
it's Greg Dulcich
type.
plus plus.
Yeah, maybe even like Aaron Hernandez esque
Yeah,
play on the field.
yeah.
Just that really athlete, kind of a smaller body type.
Dallas Clark.
Dallas Clark, yep, those
Mhm.
those types. So because of that non-prototype body, I think that you probably will see him outside of the top 5. Personally speaking, I think he will end up in the top 10 because he's just a playmaker and teams are looking for those guys, but he's not a Kyle Pitts, prototype where he's absolutely giant pterodactyl looking athlete as well. Unless Bowers is running, in like 4.3s or something at 230, then maybe we can have a discussion. But I think that lack of size makes him more of a two tight end set kind of guy or big slot type rather than that classic, set him at Y and run 11 personnel until the cows come home. So I think that probably puts him in the top 10. Also, this is because of how good the draft is this upcoming class. I can already tell you who the top 3 picks are going to be in next year's draft class, which is not typical. And, it's very cocky to say that because things happen in the world, but like with
We
95%
got it right
certainty,
this year.
we did. Yes.
I mean, a year ago, I mean, there was some hemming and hawing about it, but a year
Yeah.
in advance, it was Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson.
And this one is going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm even more confident about those 3 than I am the years 3 prior. And after that, 4 probably or in the top 5 would be Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who probably would have gone in the top 3 or 4 in last year's drafted had he come out. So that's Bowers dropping out of the top 5. I think has as much to do with his weirdness of the prototype versus the how unbelievable the top players in the next year's class are.
It's one of those, Rob, don't overthink it.
Mhm.
Just watch him play.
Yep.
When you'll get the analytics guys that will say, well, he's a half inch shorter than I'd like him to be. He's 10 pounds lighter than I like him to be. Yeah, but he makes every play that those other guys that you're comparing him to do not.
Mhm.
Don't overthink this one. And we'll say that again when we get closer and he's starting to get picked apart. Again, you're trying to find the negatives when
Mhm.
you're talking about, do I invest? It's why I enjoyed this more than recruiting. You could never say anything bad about a football recruit because the team's fans that he was going to would just tear you to pieces. In this, it's not a recruiting. They're not choosing where they go. They're picking this player.
Mhm.
So it's you can be a lot more honest about it. And Bowers is one of those. I will tell people for the next 6 months, don't overthink this. He's
Yeah.
good. He's really good.
And one thing that'll help him as well go potentially in the top 5 is I don't see right now a no doubt elite defensive line player coming out. There's not a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson in this class that I've seen yet. Obviously, things can
And Jared
happen.
Verse is getting some looks.
Top 5 though, he's top 10 in my book. I don't know if I'd put him in that top 5 category, but we'll see. A lot of draft talk for a Tuesday. Well, you guys know how much we love that stuff here. Bama X says, "Good morning, Broncos country. Awesome to see you." We got Gary Palmer coming in for 99. Says, "I remember Sean Payton saying that he doesn't want to let a player go if he balls out somewhere else." Clue. It could be a clue. It could also be Sean Payton, playing a little song and dance to get teams to pay up for a player. So, if you
And
want this guy,
that's also standard.
yes.
If Sean just happens to say it, you're always afraid of, if I let
Mhm.
this guy go, is he going to come back and haunt me? That's the
Mm,
the fear of every player you have to release. So
mm.
that's pretty standard.
Yep, absolutely. Derek Player coming in says, "Do we keep Frank Clark or trade him?" I think he's probably kept. I think the roster, if I could go back right now and, have the gift of foresight for just the moves this offseason at this point from what we know and tell George Payton and Sean Payton, hey, maybe hold off on that one a little bit. One of those moves would be signing Frank Clark to the deal they did because he didn't look great. And I guess, I don't know if you saw the post preseason game 2 interviews with Randy Gregory playing late and then Frank Clark playing great. And Frank Clark seemed a little bit miffed about that. I didn't really love his demeanor and responses. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but got paid decent money to come in and he looks like the 4th edge rusher right now. I don't know if that's a great investment. The other one I would be like, hey, maybe don't do that would be Tremont Smith.
That one would be more for me on that one. You could
Yeah.
use an edge. I don't see the role necessarily for Tremont Smith
Yeah.
for a guaranteed money. I mean, he hasn't been a starter anywhere. and you don't need to pay $3 million for a kick returner. Kick returner is being legislated out of the game. And I think he had 9 kickoff returns last year, when he's getting the guarantee money. You could have done better with that if you needed another corner, I think.
Mhm.
But we'll see. These guys all have a chance to learn, to get more comfortable, to be better. There's nothing I'm saying that is on this when it comes to the future of how these guys will contribute to the team. That is an absolute freaking fact.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. So, Scott, we have a lot of news trickling in so far today. Just kind of a recap again as it's happening live. Broncos have moved on from Hagi Nabdusi. They also moved on
And
from defensive
Dubuisi.
tackle Ndubuisi.
And Dubuisi.
Ndubuisi. If and when he makes the team, then we'll definitely work to learn that name more consistently, like Alberto Cuebanam. But for now, he has not made the team. PJ Mustipher released so far today as well. Offensive lineman Henry Bird, potential practice squad kind of guy. Josh Hammond was released, a wide receiver, came in from the XFL, had that touchdown catch. Back end, tight end, Tommy Hudson has been released, wide receiver Taylor Grimes, and Seth Benson, linebacker, as well as Ben DiNucci. So the Broncos are at 74 players so far.
Wow.
They have to get down a bunch more still. Sorry, what was that?
I said, wow. I mean, they're pretty busy.
Yep.
It's been, like you said, it was a flurry.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And Miguel Santos-Steven coming in saying, has Moss played nickel before? I can go
rookie cornerback Riley Moss.
Yes. I could go really in the weeds here for this one. I won't. But Iowa's defense, they've been playing a lot of 4-2-5 with a safety body type in the slot, more so to combat the power spread that you're seeing across a lot of the Big Ten right now. So Moss, much more of he's big, but he's not safety big, has not played much slot for the.
What is a power spread?
Power spread is when you are spreading it out with wide receivers, but you're pretty much running a downhill quarterback running offense.
So, okay.
So Urban Meyer offense.
More RPOs and stuff. Because I'm thinking, when I hear power spread, I'm thinking, all right, run and shoot with Craig Ironhead Hayward as your tailback. Yes, that and your quarterback can run.
Yeah. I think Urban Meyer is kind of the start of the power spread trend in the league, where it's, 3-4 wide receivers, shotgun, a lot of zone reads, and that quarterback is running the ball as much as the running backs. Power spread. Very popular.
It's old school when your best athlete was your quarterback and you ran the ball a lot with your quarterback. It's actually old. Mm-hmm. Except your wide receivers used to play a little tighter. That's all. Yep. It's a veer.
Yep. Those JT Barrett days or Terrell Pryor, those guys playing quarterback.
Go back a little farther and try again.
Yeah, I could go back way farther, but I think
Tim Tebow, dude, come on.
Oh yeah.
If you're gonna talk about who is of Urban Meyer, who was the guy for that?
Yeah,
it was Tim Tebow.
I guess I say the Ohio State ones because we're talking about it in context of what Iowa's defense has become.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of safeties playing that spot. So Moss has not played much nickel. He's been much more of a boundary corner, playing a lot of off coverage, and that's why he had so many plays on the ball at Iowa. So Iowa kind of bet on the quarterback level not being good enough to hit some of those deeper routes. And if your cornerbacks are smart enough and playing in tandem with the linebackers and safeties, then they can make some plays on the ball. And here we are with Riley Moss. So probably not a nickel option. If you're talking about the backup to Essang Bassey at nickel, I think you're probably talking about potentially some Caden Stearns and some dime looks out there, as well as somebody who I think's had a pretty good preseason and I think is now the de facto backup slot. I don't think he'll make the roster, but we can have a conversation about it. Faion Hicks, 7th round pick 2 years ago. I thought he had a pretty good preseason, and he's probably the backup to Essang Bassey at slot. You could maybe talk about, oh my God, his name's escaping me right now. Jaquan McMillan there as well, but I think Faion Hicks looks actually a little bit better in that slot than McMillan did. So definitely we'll see what happens with that backup spot. But Essang Bassey, phenomenal preseason, smart player, ball skills, that matters. You're losing a little bit of twitch, explosiveness, and tackling compared to Quan Williams, but there's a reason Quan was the starter.
And remember, guys move around all the time. If I'm in man coverage, I'm following that guy into the slot. So corners have played everywhere for the most part. Where they're most comfortable is different, but Riley Moss has played everywhere. Pat Surtain will line up in the slot a lot over the course of 1,000 snaps. So they're interchangeable to a certain extent and versatile. That's why you want athletes.
Yep. Yeah, and other news, Trevor Siemian was released from the Bengals. Broncos country probably remember him. And yeah, well, we got Michael Ronquillo there on top of that one. So thank you so much, Michael. We'll see. Also, I guess I've seen some people in the news here. I want to confirm it. Andrew Mason. I love Andrew Mason. Great guy. Had a chance to meet up with him when he was in Cincinnati last year. Great guy. But he is retweeting Diana Rossini. So Diana Rossini is reporting that the Broncos are making calls on trading for kickers. Scott, I got to be honest with you. I absolutely hate this. We just talked about how the Broncos have very little draft capital. And I know that if it's just a seventh round pick, sorry to raise your eyebrow on that, very few draft picks, and a lot
Because
of
it's
their
just an
draft picks.
involuntary twitch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very little draft picks. And I think they only have a 1 and a 3 next year. They don't even have a second round pick. They were going to have 2 3s, but then they traded that for the Moss trade. So they're very low on the early picks. And now you're talking about cutting out some of the depth of it as well. The volume of picks, not only do you have less picks to go with, but it gives you less versatility to move up and down the draft board when you have less picks, which is something we saw they'd like to do last year, obviously. So giving up a pick for a kicker, I'm not about it. I honestly think I'd rather run with Maher. I trust Westhoff. I trust Peyton, but if they're going to trade for a kicker, I'd rather just hold that in my pocket.
And the thing is you're talking about trading for a kicker that is probably about to be cut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who's giving up their starting kicker right now?
Yep.
You know, so they're going to be waived. Would I rather use a 6th-round pick on a kicker or the number 5 waiver spot on a kicker? Neither. I don't want to use either
Yep.
one of those. I can wait and find somebody later. So I agree with you on that. We'll see. We'll see when it happens. We're on the record for saying we don't think it's the best idea in the world to use a draft pick on a kicker. You know, now if they're going to go player for someone that they were going to cut to, now we're talking. This guy wasn't going to make our 53. Let's see if we can get a kicker out of it. But I'd go into the season with Maher. And Craig Smith says, wow, when was the last time a team ran the run and shoot offense? Nick?
I have no idea.
Constantly. What is the run and shoot? The run and shoot is 4 wide and a single setback. That's it. That's all the run and shoot was. Before that, there were a lot of pro sets and I formations. So we'll call 11 personnel. It was crazy to think that you'd go with 4 wide and no fullback. So no tight end. That's all a run and shoot is 4 wides and a single running back. Constantly. You see it every game. Every single team runs some variation, has packages of the run and shoot. So it still happens all the time.
Is that the Eric Coryell offense? The Bruce
no,
Bruce
they
Arians?
used a tight end. I mean, we had Kellen Winslow in there. They went with a tight end.
Okay.
I mean, it went no tight ends. It was straight. It was 2 slot receivers, two outside, and a single back. And you could use your single back different ways. You know, Barry Sanders, obviously, Detroit ran it with a lot of success. But like I said, I mentioned Craig Ironhead Hayward because he came in and ran it with the Falcons because you'd go super light to try and match up against those wide receivers, the 4 wides. And then you got Ironhead coming at you and you're trying to tackle him with nickelbacks and he's hurting people. But the run and shoot's just 4 wide. And the I don't know, June Jones was one of the big starters of that. And then Jerry Glanville was one of the first to really bring it to the NFL with June Jones. But you know, you see other variations of that. Texas Tech, who am I thinking of? He just passed away. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Mike Leach.
Mike Leach, that was a variation of it where you take that running back and go 5 on the line and you go empty in the back. But it's the run. That's all the run and shoot was.
Okay. Yeah, I think teams that still play the teams have kind of gotten away from the power spread in the college game because you're seeing much more air raid oriented ones, unless you're going actual NFL pro sets like Michigan and Georgia have been. Although see what Georgia looks like post Modkin as the offensive coordinator. Teams that I still run the power spread. I mean, Oregon running it out there. And you're going to also see Penn State run it. And Penn State's a sneaky, talented team this year, man. They got athletes. I'm excited to watch what Penn State can do. Not a big Franklin fan, but he had players kind of diving injuries when they went to Iowa last time, which I really don't like when they do that to take advantage of the clock and kind of get the crowd out of it. But I digress. We have Michael Ronquillo coming in with some news. I got 3 names to report here. Aaron Patrick has been waived, outside linebacker. He might be back on the practice squad. I know that Kliss had him on his final roster for special teams, so we'll see what happens with Patrick there. And undrafted free agent out of Air Force defensive tackle Jordan Jackson, who I thought was okay in preseason. So I think he'll make his way back to the practice squad. Final one here, Scott, some name you mentioned yesterday, Art Green. Yep, Jeremy didn't say it here, but Jeremy says Aaron Patrick cut Nick and Scott. Are you surprised? Not surprised, but he was one that was a fringe player, and if he would have made it, been like, oh, this is a special teams move. He's not, so we'll find somebody
Yeah,
else.
that was the only reason. I kind of discount special teams unless you're a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Patrick, I didn't really see him getting on the field as an edge, as an outside linebacker. So it's like, oh well, we're gonna take him for special teams to do what? You know,
You want a core four guys.
are you a gunner? Is he long snapper? What on special teams would make him so special that would make up for the fact that he's taken up a spot in a position that he won't play? He's so no, I'm not surprised. I was surprised to see him on Mike Klis's 53.
Yeah, I think we disagree a little bit. This is probably the Iowa Hawkeye, seeping into my brain. But I think the last like 10 guys in your roster, they better damn well figure out a way to contribute to special teams, because you lose the NFL. The margins are too small. So if you're getting your ass kicked in special teams, then you're going to lose a lot of winnable games. So yeah, I see some comments here. Jonathan Taylor remaining a Colts. Yeah, I don't think Jonathan Taylor will be bringing him in. They're probably just calling on him.
It's
So
kind of an
I don't
obnoxious
know.
comment. Truth hurts. Sorry to bring bad news. Who in here was talking about Jonathan Taylor coming to the Broncos? Wow, you're really,
Yeah,
really going out on a limb that one. Wow.
yeah,
Careful.
that's
Crazy.
yeah. Broncos like his talent. I don't see it happening again. Coming back to the Broncos, not having enough capital, just to make those kind of moves right now. They got to hold on to their picks if they can.
And they got to
Keith
keep
Brugman,
salary cap money available for next year.
you're already in the red. So
Mhm.
yep, that's a big one as well. Keith Brugman says if the Broncos were a player away, that player would play the blank position. If you're one single player away, then from where the Broncos are at, then the answer is probably still quarterback, right? Because who's going to actually make the biggest impact? Like if you drop off Russell Wilson, who I think is going to have a top 15 year for the Broncos, uh, and put in Patrick Mahomes, the Broncos are Super Bowl contenders. They just are. That's how good Mahomes is. So I think it's probably quarterback here. Even that has more to do with just the impact
All right, take
quarterback
Mahomes
has.
out because that's not fair. Because you could say that with Mahomes in any team for the most part.
Oh yeah,
Mahomes
yep,
is that good. Mahomes is going to take any team in the top 15 and make them
yeah.
legit contenders to go on. So take him out and let's say you can still say quarterback, but not Mahomes, and make your case. Because I'm thinking, again, I'm thinking tackle. I mean, I want to go wide receiver to a certain extent on this one. Give me
A
a
singular
boss wide receiver.
a singular wide receiver is going to have more of an impact than a singular offensive tackle, because the offensive line is more about the unit. If you plug in Justin Jefferson on this Broncos
Yeah,
team, you're talking about a team that's probably going to, I mean, you're talking probably 12 wins,
and
13, 12 wins.
I could find five guys. You're not going to find
Yeah.
five Patrick Mahomes. So let's think of it like that. Could I grab one of the top 5 edge rushers?
I mean, the answer is still probably quarterback, just because I mean, if you can give me Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, I mean, Justin Herbert, one of those guys, just the impact of quarterback, like going from a B to a B plus at quarterback is probably a bigger difference on your record than going from a B to an A at anywhere else, or a C
Right.
plus to an A. That's just how important the quarterback is and the impact on the game. But taking quarterback off the field, I probably will go star wide receiver next, just because the Broncos have been so bad at offense, and getting somebody who, no matter what, you can toss it up to and like dictates coverages, somebody that you can get the ball to. I mean, just run the offense through. Uh, that would be incredible. So I think that would probably be the most impactful one if you could go one position. Personally,
Yeah, wide receiver was what I was thinking on that one. If it wasn't quarterback on that one, again, I wanted to talk. A monster on the defensive line. And
that's
maybe Randy Gregory could end up being that guy.
mhm.
That's what you're hoping for. And as David says, we need more draft picks, not less. Scott, do you think we draft a quarterback or tackle this upcoming draft? Yes, a quarterback or a tackle, absolutely. Both. You've got to start drafting tackles again, man. This is unbelievable, really, that you've gone 7 drafts without drafting an offensive tackle. There can't be any other team in football that's done that, Nick. I mean, I could figure it out, and it wouldn't take me that long. So I might do that next show. Thursday we'll come back and we'll take a look at how many other teams have drafted X amount of tackles since Garrett Bowles was drafted.
Yeah. And back to Keith's question, the other two spots here that would make some sense. Defensive line in general, like if you could plug in Chris Jones or Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons, that would have an unbelievable effect on the team. And then maybe even you want to talk cornerback. If you plug in, Sauce Gardner opposite of Patrick Surtain, I mean, what do teams even do then, right? How do you even stop that? I don't know. But those would be the spot, just the value positions. But the answer is quarterback. So Scott, I have a Google Doc pulled up here. And if you want to run through and kind of guess some of the positions here, we're kind of cheating because we are getting information here. The only one so far that
there aren't many surprises for me.
Yeah, that's true. I would say that potentially somebody like guys that we could have debated, like Ben DiNucci making it, or maybe Aaron Patrick could have a discussion, but not happening now. So Scott, I will work through this and you kind of lead it. I think
Are you going to type in 53 names? We got about 10 minutes, dude.
Yeah, we can do this. This won't take long. Wilson,
quarterbacks, you're taking 2.
Wilson and Stidham.
Yep.
Easy. Yep. Running backs, I think we can all agree. Williams, P. Ryan, and of course McLaughlin. Wide receiver. We're going to have to probably come back around here, but Sutton's making it, of course. Judy. We also got, of course, Johnson and Mims. Yep. You think there's another wide receiver that's obvious?
Judy. I mean, you said Judy, right?
Judy's on here. Yep, we got 4. Sutton, Judy, Johnson, Mims.
Well, Sean Payton only took 5 in his last year there.
So let's
Who's that going to be?
If I had to pick right now, I think it would be Lil Jordan Humphrey. But I don't feel great about it. It could be Callaway, but I think Jordan Humphrey is the one who sticks out to me.
Brandon Johnson?
I have him on here.
Okay. I can't see that. You got to zoom that in.
Okay, I can do that.
I'm okay with Lil Jordan Humphrey on that one. Is Grimes already waived. It's not going to be Michael Bandy. Callaway. I go Lil Jordan Humphrey as the 5th.
Okay. Humphrey. We
offensive line. You got your 5 starter. You got your first 5. Bowles, Powers, Cushenberry, Miners, McGlinchey. Then you have Fleming. I'm going to say Palczewski.
And please forgive my spelling on these. I'm going blind on this. I think Bailey makes it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Bailey on that one too.
That gives us 9 offensive linemen. I think you're probably okay with 9 right now. We can come back to it, see what we're at the end.
That's 8 offensive linemen. Remember, you started at 2.
Oh, yes, 8. So we still have 1 more for sure. You could go with
is that going to end up being Wattenberg?
It's Wattenberg or Fuller, in my opinion. You could go either way. Fuller's gotten more work at center. He's a little bit bigger. Wattenberg, I think, has looked improved. You have to waive Wattenberg compared to outright cutting Fuller. I'd be fine with either of them here.
Yeah, I'll go Wattenberg on this one.
Okay.
I mean, except the only reason I wouldn't is because Wattenberg was drafted by the previous regime. Fuller was signed by this one. But after that,
Fuller feels like a guy to me that they could cut and then after the short-term IR stuff, bring right back.
Yeah, and add Michael Burton to, as Jeremy said, to the running backs.
Oh, good call. Thank you, Jeremy. Michael Burton. So we have defensive. So we're on the offense now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
I have to teach this kid how to use spreadsheets.
I could do count, but probably easier to do that than hear me slapping away on the keyboard. So we also had tight end. Do we want to mark in Alberto? I only have 3 tight ends right now. Dulcich, Troutman, and Manhertz. We're between Atkins and Alberto.
I go Alberto.
Okay, let's do it. And you guys will have to let us know if we miss anybody on.
So what you do down at the bottom, put the numbers down at the bottom. Put in row 12, 2, 4, 5, 4, 9. And then you can auto sum those at the end.
Equals count. Yep.
Interior D-line, Jones.
Yep, DJ Jones, Zach Allen,
Mike Purcell,
Jonathan Harris. You definitely want one more. I think Henningsen will make it. Henningsen. Henningsen, God bless it. I was like, which one is it? Henningsen. I said it right the first time.
Henningsen. I think Henningsen's in.
And then it comes down to Lancaster versus Garcia. I
Put
think.
Garcia in for now, and then if we'll add him up at the end, we'll probably have to make a cut.
Okay, Garcia's in. I think that last defensive line spot is very much up in the air for who the Broncos could bring back. Edge, pretty easy. We got Gregory. We got, of course, Clark.
Yeah, Clark,
Benito,
Gregory, Benito, Cooper.
And yep, there's 4 right
Browning
there.
Won't take a spot.
And Browning, because he's on PUP and he was on there before the activities started for the Broncos, he can stay on PUP.
Yeah,
so that's great.
He won't take a spot. Inside linebacker, Jingleton. You know what? I'm trademarking that one. Who are your linebackers? Jingleton, Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, Josie Jewell, and Alex Singleton. Sanders and Sternad probably makes it if you're keeping those.
I agree. Completely.
Corners, Surtain. This one gets tough.
Mathis. Yep. Saying Bassey.
I've got to have Bassey on there now.
Yep. From what I gathered and I've talked to people, it sounds like Moss is actually getting pretty close to being ready, and they think that he could be ready for week 1, if not.
Did they pup him preseason?
No, he got injured after team activity, so they can't do the Baron Browning pathway. So he's going to make the roster, and you should expect to see him part of the rotation pretty soon. So I think Moss is one.
I think the chat, our Broncos country community, approves of the Jingleton nickname.
I love Jingleton.
Alex Joe Jingleheimerton Jewel. Jingleton. It should only count as one guy, honestly. So we should get an extra spot.
They morph into one linebacker. That'd be great, although they kind of have similar skill sets. But we are at 5 cornerbacks. I have Moss and McMillan making it. You probably got to have, I don't know. I mean, you waive Green. I guess there's a conversation you can have between Hicks, and I really don't like it, but I think that Smith also could potentially be on there.
Safety.
Okay,
Stern, Simmons, Jackson. You cutting another draft pick in Jail Skinner?
I'd be cutting him. I've not been super impressed.
Faion Hicks was cut. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Hicks is gone? Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's good. Well, that's news. So we have 5 cornerbacks and 3 safeties. That's not enough right now. I guess
no. You're going to have another safety.
I think probably the issue is that Locke is hurt. I don't know what the long-term implication is for Locke.
Then DTY in there.
DTY, okay. That's 4. You probably still need another defensive back in there somewhere.
Then you need 3 specialists.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember the long snapper name.
Dixon, Marr, and Fraboni.
Fabrioni.
No, it's Fraboni. Fraboni.
Fraboni. That's 3 equals some. All these guys.
And where does that put us?
50.
50. All right. So we've got 3 ads. Running back, Bulls. You sure you did that right?
Yep. Unless my numbers are wrong underneath.
Yeah.
2, 4, 5, 4.
You got 6. Yeah, 6 DL edge. Jewel. Do you carry 10? Because K-Up says Forsyth, and I kind of like Forsyth in there.
The one we were talking a lot was Fuller as well. I think Forsyth, we didn't even get a chance to see him for second string the entire preseason. It was third and fourth.
If I had this, I wouldn't have to make a decision. If I add 3, I could add another wide receiver, another corner, another safety.
I think we are pretty low on defensive players. I think we have much more on the offensive side.
Now that's kind of how it works out, though.
24 on offense. Defense equals. Oh, maybe we're closer than I thought. 23. Okay, so probably go another.
I go Callaway. at wide receiver.
Callaway.
And then I might add another corner and safety. So this would get me, if Locke needs to be on there, if I need to hold a spot for PJ Locke.
And then we are debating another cornerback here.
Yeah, K1's out. We got Bassie, we got Moss. Hicks was cut. Moreau ain't making it. Oh,
The
there's
option.
your Draymond Smith for your pick on that one.
He's the kick returner right now.
I can't do it, man.
Okay, we can go. I just can't imagine them carrying 6 safeties.
I just think I don't see them cutting half their draft class either, though.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's put in Fuller. Let's 10 offensive linemen is not unheard of.
Yeah. And then they're going to make some moves.
Yep. So there you go. There it is. I don't think we're missing anybody egregious here, but we're at 53 here. Wilson, Stidham, Williams, Perrine, McLaughlin, Burton, Sutton, Judy, Johnson, Mims, Humphrey, Callaway, Dulcich, Troutman, Manhertz, Alberto. We could have gone with Atkins instead of Fuller.
Yeah,
he brings special teams.
It is possible you've taken five tight ends for now. Again, I have a hard time thinking they're going to just immediately cut Skinner and Forsythe.
Yeah. So you think we should go with Forsythe here and drop Locke, or
I don't know how I haven't seen anything of Locke. Is he hurt? What's the story? He's a back end guy I haven't paid any attention to. I know that Skinner, if all things are equal, Skinner's going to get that spot over Locke because he's just drafted in the money.
Okay, we can go Skinner there.
But you have room to do both.
If we drop Fuller, then yes. I just can't imagine them carrying 6 safeties.
No, but there's your special teams guys. A linebacker's not a special teams guy. Your special teams guys are your gunners, your kick coverage, your kick returners. Those aren't linebackers.
Well, dang, looking at this roster, maybe the Broncos are going to be on the depth cornerback market more than we thought entering this. Oh, wait a second. We forgot Kwan Williams at corner. So that's
because they do have to keep him on the 53.
Yep.
So yes, they do have to keep him on the 53.
So there it is. And that would get I dropped Skinner, or I dropped Locke on that one. I probably think we drop Skinner. It could be either. But if the chat wants to scream Skinner, I got to say I was not super impressed with him in preseason overall.
I just think he's got a better chance just for the reasons I said. He was drafted in the years of control and the cheapness.
Yep.
Not great reasons to keep somebody, but we're talking about the 53 on here, and I would not be getting comfortable if I was, again, these last 5 guys that we're talking about might not be on the roster on Friday.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Some of these guys, Callaway could be cut as well. I think so. Just looking at the roster here as we wrap it on up, spots on the back end where we feel probably the least comfortable with where the Broncos roster is at. The back end of the wide receiver room, I think the Broncos will be looking hard there. Potentially on the back end of the offensive line, I think Bailey and Fleming have played well enough. They'll keep them. It might be a conversation between Palashetsky and Wattenberg. After that last interior defensive line spot up in the air, I think, and also adding another cornerback. So wide receiver, offensive line, interior defensive line, and cornerback to me are the ones where you could see the Broncos potentially looking for a spot. And Michael Ronquillo makes a good point here. Mm-hmm. Tyler Lancaster didn't play preseason game 3. He might make the Broncos 53-man roster. I think Lancaster is somebody that the Broncos, he's the perfect situation where he's somebody that you can cut, and then after you put Kwan Williams on the short-term IR, bring Lancaster back. Fuller, Lancaster, Callaway, those veterans that have been in the league for 4 years that can do what we did with Mike Purcell last year, and Lancaster fits that bill exactly.
Yeah, he's 28, so he would hit. He'd be available right away, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But he's been bounced around so much. I don't know how much he's actually played.
And it does say 54 now. I think we added.
So we'll see. On that note, we've got it documented now.
Yes,
we've got it. We've got it documented for our 53 that it's a soft 53, but so is the roster. Like I said, the over under on players that aren't on this roster that get announced at 4:00 Eastern today that aren't on the roster on Friday. 3?
And just to wrap it up as well, the moves that happened while we were talking and going through that exercise, Broncos waived on Faion Hicks as well. Also, Mike Kliss tweets out one thing to keep in mind about Broncos moves. There could be a couple surprise releases. The plan is to bring them back tomorrow with a couple players going to the short-term IR, procedural type transactions, something that Scott and I talked about a lot today, even using the terminology procedural. So that's
it's administrative. It's pushing paper. Loopholes.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And I see Chris Jenkins comes in and asks about will the Broncos keep DiNucci? DiNucci's already been waived, but he very easily could end up back on the practice squad and could be somebody you can activate a couple times from. I think you can activate somebody 4 times from the practice squad before they have to make your active
3.
roster.
You can flex them 3 times.
Maybe it's
the
3.
third time you flex them, you have to keep them. Chris Jenkins says that shouldn't count against the 53 for the emergency quarterback. The rule on this is no. They have to be on the 53. You're allowed 48 game day actives. So even though you've got a 53-man roster, you only dress 48 on game day. So you've got 5 inactives. The new rule allows you to add a 49th player, but he has to be a quarterback. And he also has to be on your 53. So you have to ask yourself, is this guy worth having on there, that he takes up a 53 spot to be an emergency quarterback or not? And that can change around a lot as well. So has to be on the 53.
Yep, absolutely. Well, guys, appreciate everyone coming in here. A little bit long today, but had a lot to talk about with the Broncos roster moves coming up and all this stuff happening while we're doing the show. So appreciate Scott for hanging around late, and appreciate everyone in the chat for hanging around with us late as well. Make sure you guys are clicking a thumbs up on the way out as we wrap it on up. Follow Scott and I on X/Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod on X, as well as at Mile High Huddle, of course, on Facebook. If you're joining us there in the metaverse, Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. If you are listening to us after the fact, or you just listen to podcasts in general, find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever that is. Leave us a 5-star review and rating. Say that I love Scott, but Nick just drives me nuts. Or, I'm here for Chad and Zach, but I cannot stand Nick. Just put me down. I'm okay with that. I can take it. I'm a man, in the words of Mike Gundy. But make sure you guys are also on YouTube, subscribing to Mile High Huddle on there, liking this individual show, and sharing it on your social media platforms. Chad puts it up on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram bits, and Twitter afterwards. And we always appreciate the people who like that and retweet or repost, whatever it is called now on X, for all those things. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Scott, any final thoughts out here? Can we get a Jingleton? I need to get that one cut up. Jingleton's making it.
I gotta get that trademarked. I want a nickel every time someone says Jingleton moving forward. Should be good for at least 25 cents.
I think that's a good one.
Any final thoughts? Yes.
Okay.
Building the Broncos tonight. You don't miss it with Carl and Nick. Be there tonight. I'll be in the background. Hopefully I'll be too busy to be weighing in on the chat. So you want to get there. It should be a great gut reaction to the 53 show tonight. Appreciate everybody in here. Avalanche and Broncos fan. I'm glad it got worked out for you. You got in a little late. I saw you were having a little audio problem, but it looks like that worked out well. Thanks for being here, y'all. Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday, where we can talk about the 53 and probably most of the practice squad at that point.
Yep. It'll be a lot of fun. Jingleton, great. Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie, Jingleton all the way. And you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you again tonight. Make sure you continue to choose kindness and compassion, as I always like to say. Have a great one. Go Broncos.